is the Gerry Callahan Show.
So we've heard the criticisms of Donald Trump for, 8, 9, 10 years now. He's a fascist. He's a dictator, authoritarian. He's a racist. Yes, they brought that one out again. He's a racist. That's all they got at this point. And I will say this, if Trump's a fascist, he's a really bad fascist. He has been back in office for more than 6 months now, and we're still waiting for an arrest. We're still waiting to see Anthony Fauci or James Comey or Brennan or Clapper or Adam Schiff frog marched. We're still waiting to see one of them handcuffed and arrested. I'm not sure. He's really good at being an authoritarian at this point, and I know he's not good at being a racist. This criticism is absurd in many cases, but this week it perhaps has fallen flatter than ever. They're calling his decision to deploy federal troops, National Guard, and law enforcement officials from various agencies to stop the violent crime wave in our nation's capital. And we heard from Ayanna Pressley, we heard from Jasmine Crockett and Brandon Johnson, all the usual suspects. The MSNBC crew of nuts and freaks come out and call him a racist. How is it racist exactly? Can someone explain that to me? When Donald Trump sent in the feds 2 days ago, and update, they're up to 43 arrests since he did deploy the feds, since he did invoke his authority to use federal officials to curb the violence in our capital city and make it safe for tourists and, yes, residents. It's in reaction to this violent crime wave, which affects the black community, black kids mostly. This is going to save the lives of young black kids. We should do this in many major cities. I wouldn't mind if he did it. I know it's easier in DC. I know he has the authority, but what about Chicago? What about Baltimore? What about Oakland? What about New York, LA? The crime wave, the violence we see, yes, it's perpetrated by young black violent criminals, but the victims are young black people in DC. And yesterday, Jeanine Pirro did, the U.S. attorney in DC, did exactly what I begged for her to do, which is what they did during the when they closed the border and ICE went into these communities and arrested violent criminals. They showed you the victims. This is a dividing line between Republicans and Democrats, between Trump and his opposition. Trump talks about victims. Trump does something for victims. Democrats never do that. You don't hear it. You don't hear Ayanna Pressley or Jasmine Crockett or Brandon Johnson or any of the freaks on MSNBC say, yes, young black people are dying in the streets of our nation's capital. If that doesn't qualify as an emergency, if that doesn't call for federal assistance, then what does? How can you not look at these pictures we have on the screen right now? These are the victims. In 2024, 45 black kids murdered in DC. In 2025, another 24 so far, young black kids. There's a girl right there, 3 years old, murdered on the streets of our nation's capital. There she is. Honesty Cheadle. Honesty Cheadle was 3 years old when she was murdered, probably by young black criminals. But while Democrats like to focus on the criminal and pass laws like the Youth Rehabilitation Act and the Second Chance Amendment and the Incarceration Reduction Amendment Act, which allows these perpetrators to, as Jeanine Pirro pointed out, go to arts and crafts class and spend no time in a big boy prison. She's not even allowed to charge them when they're 14, 15, 16 years old. That doesn't get to her desk. She wants to change those laws. And if she does, if we do, then the killers will finally and at last pay a price for their crimes. This is the last thing you could call this is racist. The last thing you could say about this is authoritarian. It's fascist. What? How do we allow it to get to this point in this city, this historic place where kids are being murdered on the streets outside our nation's capital, outside the White House? It's not just protecting tourists. That's good. We should be protecting tourists and protecting people like Eric Tarpanian, the 21-year-old UMass student who was interning and was shot in a random killing when he was out to get McDonald's food at 10 o'clock at night on June 30th. Obviously, that's horrific. And it's horrific what happened to Big Balls, beaten up by a gang of 10 or 12, 14 and 15-year-olds who were attempting to carjack Big Ball's friend. That's bad. This is worse. You have 3-year-olds being murdered, and you don't have anyone screaming about this, how outrageous it is, how wrong it is for this to happen in our nation's capital. Quite the opposite. You have people like Ayanna Pressley and Jasmine Crockett calling this move racist. Ayanna Pressley said this was a vibrant, what'd she call it? A vibrant black city. It is not dangerous in Chicago, in Washington, D.C. What? Tell that to the families. Tell that to the mother of Honestly Cheadle. Tell that to the mother of Eric Tarpanian, Jackham Tarpanian. These are real victims, real faces. And I wanted Jeanine Pirro to do this, and she did it. She put those poster boards up, and when the media started telling her, oh, crime is down, it was remarkable. Watching the media one after another, people have compiled the tweets from Hillary Clinton and all the Democrats in Congress saying, crime is at an all-time low, a 30-year low. First of all, that is a lie. Secondly, so what? So what? 3-year-olds are being murdered on the street. Gangs of 15-year-olds are carjacking, as we pointed out yesterday, almost 1,000 carjackings last year in D.C., a city of 700,000. That is crime out of control. And the idea that, oh, it's not as bad as last year, that's your defense? That it was bad, real bad last year, and this year it's not quite as bad. It's like a 500-pound guy, J.B. Prisker, loses 20 pounds, and you say, oh, he's fine. He only weighs 480 now. Isn't that great? That's like your kid coming home from school after getting straight Fs last semester. He comes home and gives you a report card with straight Ds. And you're supposed to say, well, we got no problem here. It's not a problem. It's down. Look, murders, it's only 112 murders this year so far. That's fewer than last year. That's the tact, that's the approach for Democrats, for the media, to tell you there's not quite as many 3-year-olds being murdered this year than last year. This has really illuminated the difference here. They don't care about victims. They just hate Trump. That's all. That's their policy. That's their approach. Trump bad. Trump's doing it. It must be wrong. And then you have the victims. Give me that old woman. Quick clip from an old woman in D.C. And she's black, of course, which means Ayanna Pressley and Jasmine Crockett and Simone Sanders don't care about her. She doesn't matter. She's thrilled to see federal authorities in the streets protecting black lives. Remember when they used to matter? Black lives, they don't really matter right now to Democrats because Trump is doing something to protect those black lives, and they hate Trump. Listen to this.
All the protection that we can get in the city, because the city is really getting dangerous. A person like me at this age, I has to make sure to come home before sundown.
She has to make sure she comes home from before sundown or she's in trouble. An elderly black woman. Did you hear from her? Did you see? It's like, I remember the elderly black woman in Minneapolis during the George Floyd riots in tears because everything she had was destroyed. The block she lived on was burned, and nobody cared. It was all about George Floyd, a career criminal who overdosed resisting arrest. She didn't matter. Well, she matters to Trump. She matters to Jeanine Pirro, who made it clear, who snapped yesterday when someone said, oh, crime's down, 30-year low. That's, first of all, a lie. We'll get to that. Secondly, so what? Do you think it's not a problem? Do you think it's not a bad thing that 3-year-olds are being murdered in drive-by shootings? You think it's not a bad thing that everybody's afraid to walk the streets of our nation's capital after dark? That should piss off everybody. That should be unacceptable, that you can't walk around and look at the monuments in the buildings in the White House and the Capitol and the Jefferson Memorial and everything else, and walk the National Mall after dark in this country. We've gone over the numbers. Crime is a big problem. And I think it has exposed Democrats and the media as total frauds. They know it's a problem. They know this was a necessary step to protect people, lives, white, black, tourists, residents, whatever. Get me Jeanine Pirro. She was spectacular yesterday, bringing out the photos, the names, the stories. These are the victims. Forget your stats. Again, those are lies. We'll get to that. These are the people who are paying with their lives, because idiots in D.C., crazy liberal city councilors, make laws to not hold any of these criminals accountable, and the media who will look you in the eye and lie to you. Here's Pirro yesterday.
Are the individuals who were shot and killed under the age of 20, all teenagers in 2025. And the number here is 16. Again, all members of the minority community here. I don't know how many of these cases have been solved, but what I can tell you is, again, it's guns on the streets. It's individuals who are not concerned about accountability, who don't have any reason to fear law enforcement. I am here today to tell you that on behalf of all of these victims, all of these families, that they're going to be accountable, that we are going to make a difference, and that we are going to make sure that law enforcement is focused on these innocent, now silent victims of crime in the district.
That wouldn't happen if Kamala Harris, a black woman, if she'd won, you wouldn't see those faces. You wouldn't hear those stories. There would be no emphasis on changing these laws, which allow these young criminals to walk go take a yoga class or arts and crafts class and walk out and continue to terrorize their neighborhoods, their black neighborhoods. It's always amazing to me. You had people who had Black Lives posters, Black Lives this and Black Lives that. Well, these are Black lives. And they're losing their lives. And it's not a single Democrat, certainly not a squad member, who are obsessed with race. When you hear from whoever, when you hear from Ayanna Pressley or AOC or Ilhan Omar, everything's about race, ethnicity. Well, the majority of victims, most of the victims of in this crime wave in our nation's capital are Black people. And these people don't seem to give a damn. Their brains are broken by Trump. They give me Simone Sanders. Give me this lunatic. This is a host, a full-time host, I believe, on MSNBC, and she's absolutely out of her mind. Joe Scarborough, to his credit this week, every day says, we had to do something. Crime is out of control. He read a text from a liberal friend who said he hates to admit it, but we need this. We need federal help. We need to do something to stop these criminals. And he throws a question to Simone Sanders. Doesn't more cops help? Listen to her answer.
You don't think more police make streets safer?
No, Joe, I'm a Black woman in America. I do not always think that more police make streets safer. When you walk down the streets of Georgetown, you don't see a police officer on every corner, but you don't feel unsafe. So what is it about talking about places like Southeast D.C., right? Ward 8, if you will, that people say, well, we need more officers to make us safe. I think we have to rethink what safety means in America.
All right, what does that mean? What is she saying? That we don't need cops in Georgetown, but we need them in these bad neighborhoods? Well, is that because that's where the bad guys are? That's where the gangs are? That's where the roving gangs of 15-year-old carjackers are? And she wants to say she doesn't think cops help because she's a black woman in America? I mean, Joe, you got to follow it up. Say, what the hell does that mean? What are you saying here? Can we just say it out loud that the problem is in the black community? That's where these kids are growing up without fathers, without role models. That's where these kids are committing violent crimes and walking out. Remember that two young black girls carjacked an Uber driver and killed him, crashed his car and killed him. And when the people showed up on the scene, all they were concerned about is they couldn't find their cell phones after carjacking and killing a guy. They were like 15, 14 years old. That there's something wrong in that community, Simone. You should come out and say that. You should admit that. And there's something wrong in how we choose, hire, promote police in this country right now. It feels like every police department, every big city police department is run by a DEI hire. We've seen that. It was in Cincinnati a couple of weeks ago after the beating. Remember that lunatic who blamed the social media, blamed the media after a gang of black thugs beat the crap out of a couple of white people, almost killed a white woman in her streets, in her city. And she was upset about the media, about social media posts, taking the whole assault out of context. Don't forget New Orleans. We have that old lady who said they had barriers to block Bourbon Street, prevent a terrorist from driving his truck and killing 10 or she said, oh yeah, we had those things. We just didn't put them out. There are incompetent people running police departments in big cities because of DEI, because they're getting promoted based on their gender, their race, their gender, their sexuality. Remember the fire chief in LA after the devastating Palisades fire? Remember that DEI hire? Well, they're everywhere right now in this country, including in Washington, D.C. Just look at this. Here are the cities, just some of the cities with female police chiefs. And maybe some of them are perfectly competent. Maybe they earned their way up. Maybe they belong there. But when you see it, it's like saying, as we say all the time, you can have a DEI hire at the liberal college. You could have Wesleyan can have DEI hires as professors, and there's no real harm done. But you really don't want a DEI hire flying your plane or performing surgery on you, or even an airplane mechanic. You don't want to think they hired based on race or sex for those kind of jobs. But it appears we do that for police chiefs in major American cities. There are 3,200 officers on the Metropolitan Police Force in D.C. The best they could come up with is Pamela Smith. Her previous job after becoming police chief, she was the chief equity officer for the police department to make sure they promoted DEI people. That was her job. And then they made her police chief. And this could be the most embarrassing moment, I think, in the history of law enforcement. She shows up at a press conference with the mayor, Bowser, to talk about Trump's decision to send in the feds. And she is asked a simple question, a question everybody had. What's the chain of command? Like, who's in charge? Who's taking orders? Who's following orders? This is the police chief of Washington, D.C. Again, more than 3,000 officers under her. And how many of them say that, how many of them have any respect for this woman and think she belongs in this very important position? Check out this moment from yesterday.
Chain of command is now?
What does that mean?
Well, is it Pam Bondi speaking to the mayor, speaking to you, or how does this work?
So
the executive order is clear. The president has requested MPD services, and our home rule charter outlines the process. The president designated Attorney General Bondi as his proxy.
This is the mayor. She's been kind of middle of the road here. She knows she has a problem. She knows Trump is going to help. But the police chief was asked, what is the chain of command? And her answer is, what does that mean?
That's what the chain of command is now?
What does that mean?
What does that mean? A police chief who doesn't know what a chain of command is? That's the woman in charge of protecting and serving the people of our nation's capital. This is embarrassing. And again, it's one of the key things the Trump administration is doing, led by Harmeet Dillon, the civil rights attorney general in charge of civil rights. DEI must go away. It must die. Honest to God. You could do it in your private. You want to have a private company and you want to promote people based on immutable characteristics, fine. But our police force in DC, where kids are dying every day, where people are being carjacked, where innocent interns are being shot in the head out for McDonald's. And that woman, that incompetent moron, is in charge. That is frightening. This has to end. These are important positions. It's, again, you wouldn't want that woman. You wouldn't want that woman walking in as you're getting ready for surgery and they're saying, yep, here's your surgeon. Huh? What's a tibia? Or what's an aorta? I'm going to do surgery. I mean, she's an idiot. And she's in charge. Or she was in charge until Trump came along. Thank God till he sent in the feds. All right, we'll get to the latest on what's happening in D.C. They're making arrests. They're making the city safer, the Capitol safer. They're making it easier for tourists to walk around, perhaps our biggest tourist attraction in the country. How is that controversial? How is that? Well, I know it's Trump. So if Trump did it, it's bad. But we'll get to, let me do the MSNBC guy before we move on, because this is just amazing. We have so much here today. These people are losing their minds yet again. This is such a simple, common sense thing to do that even, again, Joe Scarborough and an SE Cup and a number of Trump haters are admitting this was necessary. This is a good thing. But idiots like Simone Sanders and this guy, the heat miser with the hair, they just can't give in. They just can't admit that he's making things safe, the city safer for African Americans. Yes, he's doing what you demand all the time. Let's take care of innocent African Americans. That's what Trump, that's what Bondi, that's what Kash Patel and Jeanine Pirro are doing. But listen to this clown.
I think it's really important to be clear about what is going on here. And a relatively small crime problem is being used for specific authoritarian purposes that we know and understand. So let's be clear about DC does have one really big crime problem, which was the January 6th insurrection incited by the current president of the United States. And his first act in coming back was pardoning all the people who tried to overturn constitutional republic order in Washington, D.C. When I go to D.C., I'm not afraid of losing my wallet so much as I'm afraid of losing my vote. I'm not afraid of losing my wallet so much as I'm afraid that my children's freedom to breathe will be stolen in a world where climate change policy is non-existent. I'm afraid that the future of middle-class people will be stolen by the very things you were talking about, cutting the safety net, cutting Medicaid, cutting rural hospitals.
Right.
So there is carjacking.
They should have rubber walls in that studio. This lunatic. Let's just run it down quickly. This is the woke mind virus encapsulated in 1 minute. If he goes to DC, this guy says he's not afraid of losing his wallet. So he's not afraid of being mugged, even though people are being mugged left and right. We played some of the victims yesterday, people who are in the media who've had their cars stolen and they've been mugged and jumped and beaten. Not afraid of that. Not afraid of these roving gangs of young thugs mugging him, stealing his wallet. He's afraid of January 6th, climate change, and losing his vote. This is such a classic moment, a look into the liberal mind. So he's afraid of imaginary things, climate change, and losing his vote if he goes to DC. But he's not afraid of getting shot in a random drive-by shooting. He's not afraid of those gangs on dirt bikes and ATVs carjacking him. He's afraid of that the weather gods might be mad and that his kids won't be able to breathe. That's an actual commentator on MSNBC. That is such an amazing clip. Save that one, Ironhead. That one. All right, we got so much more to get to. I want to get to the reason the media is parroting these lies about crime stats and saying crime's down. Well, two things. A, it's not the lowest crime rate in DC in 30 years. That's a lie. And B, so what if it is down? It's still a problem. You can't tell the mother of 3-year-old Honesty Cheadle, hey, cheer up, lady. Crime's down. Haven't you heard? It's insane. And speaking of insane, we have the most incredible story. And I hate to say it, but it comes from John Oliver, who I hate. But John Oliver has a story about Chuck Schumer. Chuck Schumer's imaginary friends. Yes, Chuck Schumer made up two people, just made them up. And he's been talking about them for 20 years, writing about them, telling their story, and they're not real. You got to hear it to believe it. It's incredible. We'll get to that and more, but first.
Excuse me.
If you've ever searched for your name or address on Google, it's shocking to find how many results have your personal information, and it's not by chance. Data brokers and people search sites, collect your personal information, your name, address, phone number, financial info, income, and hundreds of other records. They sell it and share it publicly without your consent. But Incogni is here to put an end to that. It hunts down these unethical sites and gets your info removed from the places that expose your private information. You don't have to email anyone, fill out forms, or jump through hoops. They handle the entire process for you. Incogni is also continually monitoring if your data is put back into these databases, requesting repeated removals. This way, it keeps them off there forever. So you get fewer spam calls, spam emails, and you get more peace of mind. And best of all, you can cancel anytime, and they offer a 30-day money-back guarantee, so you can get it completely risk-free. Right now, you get 60% off an annual plan by going to incogni.com and use code word Callahan. That's incogni, incogni.com/Callahan, and use the code word Callahan at checkout. You get 60% off and protect your data for an entire year. You've heard it all for a couple days now, repeated over and over again. I must have heard 100 times. We had a compilation of tweets from Democrats saying crime is at a 30-year low. Peter Baker, the New York Times reporter, said it's an imaginary crime problem in D.C. Yes, that was from, then you had Ken Delaney from NBC saying these are false claims by the president saying crime is out of control. So they circled the wagons and they lied to you. It's a lie. First of all, let's get to this guy. This is from NBC4 in Washington. A DC police commander is under investigation for making changes to crime statistics in his district. The Metropolitan Police Department confirmed Michael Pulliam was placed on paid administrative leave in mid-May. This happened a week after Pulliam filed an equal opportunity complaint against the assistant chief. The union claims police supervisors in the department manipulated crime data to make it appear violent crime has fallen considerably in the past year. Pulliam was placed on leave and told he was under investigation for questionable changes in crime data. Well, that's interesting. You have a police commander fudging the numbers, lying. And you know what the media did? They ignored that part of the story and ran with it. Check this out. MSNBC and CNN together, this is from Newsbusters, cited the fake statistics 73 times in one day. 24 hours, 73 times they referred to the crime statistics which aren't real, which are faked, fraudulent. And then you have this. This is from Byron York. He writes, you're seeing a lot of people talk about violent crime being at a 30-year low. This appears to come from a press release sent out by the Biden Justice Department in January during the transition. Quote, violent crime in D.C. hits 30-year low. There's also been questions about the MPD's crime statistics. So some elements of the press release reference to total violent crime, and they're in question. One thing that is clear is that DC homicides are not at a 30-year low. We got this chart. You'll see the years 2019, 2018, 2017, 2016, 2015, 14, 13, 12, 11, 10, 9, 8, 7, and 2006 all had fewer homicides than last year. So not only is it not a 30-year low, last year was an all-time high, or at least the high in the last 30 years. They're flat out lying to you, which is remarkable. I understand they hate Trump. They want Trump to look bad, but they repeat it over and over again, 30-year low. It's just not true. First of all, the numbers are fudged. Secondly, we have the numbers for the last 20 years, and the homicides were lower almost every year than they were last year. So they're lying about murder. That's what the media has resorted to. We're going to lie to you about murder in our nation's capital. They have no shame. Let me get to this Joe Biden clip before we get to John Oliver and all this and this incredible story about Chuck Schumer. But here's how far Democrats have gone. This is Joe Biden. You guys remember him? This is, before his mind turned to mush. He was always full of it, but he wasn't in the throes of dementia yet because it's 1992. This is a Democrat, a leader in the Senate, talking about the crime problem in D.C. 30 years ago. Listen to this.
Driving home, my staff who lives here in the Hill reminded me, don't stop at a stoplight until I'm out of town. If I see a red light late at night, since there's very little traffic, slow up at the other block so I never come to a full stop except in the middle of the block because of carjackings. Stopping at a light, people standing at a corner, walking up with a gun.
Don't stop at a stoplight from Joe Biden. Good advice. It's still amazing to me that we're talking about the nation's capital and we just accept that don't leave anything valuable in your car. People put signs in the window saying nothing in the car. They leave their car unlocked so they won't smash the windows. They just accept that that's life in Washington, D.C. Perhaps the most hilarious attempt to gaslight the public on this issue came from the Washington Post. Of course, Washington Post, the biggest newspaper in D.C., perhaps the biggest example of fake news you'll ever find anywhere. This is just an amazing moment in media bias. I know I'm obsessed with media bias, but this is an all-timer. Hang this in the Louvre, or hang it in the Kennedy Center, the Trump Kennedy Center. From the Washington Post on the issue of safety in D.C. Quote, this is a safe city, but overhearing and witnessing gang threats and then watching the camera footage of the thuggery is disturbing, said one resident, speaking on the condition of anonymity over concerns for his personal safety. A crowd of teens, he said, were roaming the street and appeared to be checking for unlocked cars and things to steal. That's one paragraph in the Washington Post. This is a safe city, said the guy who wouldn't give his name because he feared for his safety. If the media were being honest, they would just head into the black community, talk to that old lady, talk to the many, many victims of crime. But you know what you're going to see this weekend? This week, you're going to see protests against Trump and against federal presence in D.C. Again, more lies. Listen to this. This is from Fox News. DC paid protester requests surge 400% amid Trump's takeover of the city police. A crowd rental company has seen a massive uptick in inquiries regarding its services in Washington, D.C., amid President Donald Trump's move to federalize the police force. Right now, D.C. inquiries are up roughly 400% compared to the same period in 2024. Crowds on Demand CEO Adam Swart told Fox News. So there is a 400% surge in inquiries into renting a mob, into finding a protest, and there's a company, I never even heard of that, Crowds on Demand. That's this guy's company. And he admits there's this huge demand for people who want to pay people to get out there and protest. Well, they're probably going to have to do that because no sensible person. Get that SE Cup clip for me, because this lunatic, she used to be a conservative. She's a nasty woman. She's now a Trump hater, and she's now on CNN, and she comes on every night, talks about what a fascist and what an authoritarian Trump is, and a racist and a liar. But even she admits there are a few people out there who realize this is a bridge too far. They have to admit crime is a problem in DC. Check this out.
I think a few things can be true. One is that I think he's using this issue to distract for some other things. That doesn't mean it's a bad political strategy. I think it's a very good one. And the numbers can be what they are, but also people don't feel that way. And when it comes to two things, crime and the economy, feelings don't really care about your facts. And I can't tell you how profoundly stupid it is for Democrats to get up with their facts and their figures and their charts and their graphs and say, look, you're safe. Can't you read this chart, idiots? Why are you complaining? I'm showing you right here how safe you are, so shut up and move along. I don't have to tell you how profoundly stupid that is, because voters told you how profoundly stupid that was in 2024 when Democrats said, see these economic numbers? The economy's great. What are you complaining about? See these crime numbers? Crime's down. You're safe. See these immigration numbers? Obama deported way more. There's no migrant crisis. I can't tell you enough that politics is perception, and the numbers can be right, but you never tell voters they're wrong about how they feel. Congress.
They're telling him, it's a 30-year low, telling that old lady who can't step outside her apartment, telling the family of the 3-year-old or the family of the UMass intern, haven't you seen the numbers? Forget that they're fudge, they're fake, but haven't you seen the numbers? Get that protest for me, because get ready. This is going to happen all over the city. And just so you know, this isn't real. These people are being paid. Someone is paying them. I'm not sure who. George Soros. Much of the money has dried up since Doge exposed USAID, but apparently there's still enough left to pay clowns like this to march against making the Capitol safer. DC is our home. You can have it, Trump. DC is our home. You can have it, Trump. It's our home, so it's our home. Wow, paying for protests, not what it used to be. That's the best they got. They're singing songs. DC is our home. You can't have it, Trump. He lives there too. The president lives right there, which is, again, I know it's obvious, but we're not protecting the neighborhood the president lives in. That's not safe. That should be unheard of. That shouldn't be the way we live. We don't have to live this way. All right, let's get to the greatest story, maybe the greatest story I've ever had. Hate to say it, John Oliver absolutely crushes it. I hate this guy. He's just a smarmy, British punk who just hates Trump. And I haven't watched the show. I don't have HBO, but you see clips occasionally. It's all the same, just ranting and raving and lying. But they found this. They somehow came across this, and it's remarkable. It's almost impossible to believe. I'll try to describe it, and then we'll play some of John Oliver here. He came up with 2 of Chuck Schumer's constituents. They got names, they got stories, they got jobs. Hell, Chuck Schumer knows how they vote every time. Joe and Eileen Bailey of Long Island. You know, they vote for Trump usually, but they're in the middle and they're undecided and they're, you know, they're moderates, they're independents. And he tells this story and talks about their family and what they do. And they're made up. They're made up. Chuck Schumer made these people up years ago. In his book, he had a book come out in 2007, I believe. It's 264 pages. He references Joe and Eileen Bailey 265 times, tells their story. They're not real. They're just, this is remarkable. And I recommend you watch the whole thing. It's like 6 or 7 minutes. We'll play a little and just try to get your mind around this. This is the Senate Majority Leader, the most prominent Democrat in the country, guy who's been in D.C. forever. And he just, I mean, this is not Joe Biden calling out an imaginary person at one of his events because his mind is mush, but this is a senator making up two people and telling their whole story, their life story. I mean, this is like Harlan Coben stuff. The imagination it takes to do this for decades. Let's play a little here.
But I actually want to talk less about Chuck Schumer himself and more about two of his favourite people, Joe and Eileen Bailey. They're a couple that throughout Schumer's career, he has talked about a lot.
They're a middle-class couple in Massapequa, which is a suburb on Long Island.
Joe and Eileen Bailey, this middle-class couple, they bought into Reagan Republicanism in 1980. Joe and Eileen are worried about losing their jobs or their friends' jobs.
The Baileys really don't believe in trickle down. They don't believe in a whole lot of government spending, but they believe in tax breaks for kids to go to college.
He's an insurance adjuster and lives in the New York suburbs. By New York standards, he makes $50,000 a year. If he lived in the middle of the country, he'd make 40. Wife works in a medical office. She makes about 20. She might make 15 elsewhere. And, you know, I have guided my political life through the Baileys.
The Baileys have guided Chuck Schumer's political life, which is a little weird given they don't exist. Seriously, he invented them. Schumer first introduced the world to the Baileys in his 2007 book, Positively American, Winning Back the Middle-Class Majority, One Family at a Time. In it, he mentions the Baileys an astonishing 265 times in 264 pages. But he'd apparently been talking about them for years before the book was published. One of his former spokespeople said he's always asking, what would the Baileys think? And to be fair, Schumer acknowledges that some may find this a little weird.
If you ask my staff, I've been talking about and talking to the Baileys for 15 years. I have conversations with them. One of my staffers once said I had imaginary friends to the press. Got me in some trouble. But these people are real, and I respect them, and I really love them, and I care about them.
These people are real. He says these people are real. He's an insurance adjuster who makes $50,000 a year. I couldn't, I'm telling you, could not stop watching this. I kept waiting for some kind of, I don't know, disclaimer saying, you know, that they're based on real people or something, or forgot someone's name, he made up their name. He made the whole thing up. Over and over again, campaign appearances, speeches, books. These same people, they live on Massapequa. They voted for Reagan. He tells us who they voted for in the last 3 elections. Go ahead, play more.
They're literally not real, Chuck. But even if you can understand the potential utility of creating a prototypical voter in your head, this goes way beyond that, because Schumer's given the Baileys an unnecessarily detailed backstory. For instance, he said Joe takes off his cap and sings along with the national anthem before the occasional Islanders game. Okay. And when their daughter Megan, oh yeah, they've got kids, by the way, told Eileen a friend was caught cheating on a quiz, Eileen was appalled because lying is not tolerated in the house ever. Also, Eileen apparently helps with the clothing drive at her church, and her father had a prostate cancer scare a few years ago. Again, this is a made-up family. None of these people exist. But wait, I'm still not done. Apparently, Joe Bailey would never have a goatee. They watch Sex and the City and Desperate Housewives, though Joe pretends not to like either show. They think most baseball players probably take steroids, and if they were to ever go out to a Chinese restaurant, they would order Kung Pao chicken. That is a J.R.R. Tolkien level of gratuitous backstory, and I don't say that lightly. But
this is a guy who accuses Trump of lying, accuses Republicans of lying all the time. You imagine what John Oliver and every other liberal on TV would say if this were Trump, if Trump made up a family and used that family in political speeches all the time, made up that level of backstory, as he says, what they eat at Chinese restaurants, whether he have a goatee. This is like sick. This is insane. Will Chuck Schumer even be asked about it? Will Margaret Brennan have Chucky on and ask, what were you thinking, Chuck, when you made up these people and kept going back to it? And he says he talks to them. He talks to imaginary people. You know what's great? Chuck Schumer's done. His approval rating has plummeted. It's like 36%, which is almost as low as the Democrat Party. AOC is primed to take him out. He's almost 75 years old. He's afraid to defend Israel, defend his Jewish constituents, because he's afraid to offend the AOC's base of radical pro-Hamas people. So she's coming for him, if not her, someone else, and he's going down, which will be a good thing. I mean, he's got 3 years left, but he's done. He is riding on the rims. He is a lame duck. But credit to John Oliver. I don't think I've ever said that before, but I highly recommend watching that whole segment. It is mind-blowing. But let's get to my John Oliver's from probably my third. No, I'd say my least favorite would be Colbert, then Kimmel, then Oliver. How's that? Of late night comics, and Colbert's done, which is good. Kimmel's next. Jimmy Kimmel is such a sellout. It's just sad. I mean, he used to be funny. I know I say this about Stern. He's a mini Stern, where he knows he did some really offensive things. He knows he did blackface. He knows he did all kinds of racy things on the Man Show with Adam Carolla, and he knew that if he didn't sell out and become part of the establishment, he was on the endangered list. He knew he'd be in trouble. So he did what Stern did. He suddenly started kissing Democrats' ass and hating Trump. And that's basically what he does. Instead of comedy, he does political. He's like an extension of MSNBC. Anyway, he goes on with his former girlfriend, Sarah Silverman, explains he might flee to Italy because things are so bad under Trump. Listen to this, and then I have some questions.
A lot of people I know are thinking about where they can get citizenship. And
I do have Italian. I did get Italian citizenship.
You do?
I do.
That's amazing.
Yeah, I do have that. And what's going on is as bad as you thought it was going to be.
Way worse.
It's so much worse. It's just unbelievable. Like, I feel like it's probably even worse than he would like it to be.
Probably.
Yeah.
I mean,
these two people used to be funny. She used to be hilarious. These are two broken people. It's really, I'm sad. She used to make me laugh. He used to make me laugh. Now they just look like these two sad, broken, old people that just don't know what to do because the evil orange man is back in the White House. But here's my question. And she didn't ask it, of course. She didn't follow it up. I mean, you can watch this thing. I watch more of this podcast, and there's like no laughs. Sarah Silverman does a podcast where there's no laughs. That's sad. But here's my question for Jimmy. He said, it's so much worse than I thought it would be. Quick follow-up, Jimmy. What's worse? What's worse? Isn't that the obvious, follow-up, or isn't that what you should explain when you say things are so much worse? What did he do to you, Jimmy? Where did the orange man hurt you? Show us on the doll where he touched you. What is worse? What would he say to that? What would his answer be? Ironhead, what would, if I asked Jimmy Kimmel that, you say it's much worse than you thought it would be. What's worse?
I think he's thinking pretty selfishly, and I'm sure his Twitter mentions aren't fun, but
that's what's worse. I get mean tweets, but closing the border, like removing gang members. He's in LA, right? In LA, removing gang members, killers, and drug dealers from LA. What's worse? Ending foreign wars? Is that worse? Cracking down on crime? Is that worse? What's worse? What did he do in the last 6 months that makes you think it's worse than you thought it would be? Just one thing, Jimmy. Just tell me one thing. You know what he would say? He'd tell you something Trump said, or someone Trump appointed, or Stephen Miller, or Pete Hegseth. But tell us what Trump did. I say this to liberals that I know all the time. Just tell me what he did, not what he said or tweeted, what he did that made your life worse. Tell me what he did that made the country worse. Tell me one thing, Jimmy. One thing. What's worse? I honestly don't know what he'd say. He'd say I can't even think. He's a crazed, he's a broken liberal. But tell me what Trump did. Obviously, I could tell you 1,000 things that Joe Biden did, beginning with opening the border to 20 million illegals, many of them violent criminals. That's one, Tell me, sending $200 billion of my money to Ukraine. Tell me one thing Trump did in the last 6 months that made your life worse. I can't even come up with a hypothetical. Like, what would Jimmy say to that? What would John Oliver, what would Colbert say? What did he do that made your life worse? That's why these people are just so, their minds are shot. They're gone. They can't articulate it. You have their go-to cable news station. You have people saying, I'm more afraid of climate change than violence, or I don't feel safe. I'm a black woman. And you have the head of their party, Jasmine Crockett. Here's Jasmine talking about, Trump sending in the troops to protect innocent black people, black children. She writes, the man in the White House wants to crack down on crime in D.C. The audacity of sitting in the Oval Office with felony charges and thinking you can lecture anyone on law and order. This isn't about safety. It's about power, control, and a distraction. If Trump cares about crime, he'd start by looking in the mirror. God, they're children. All of them, Kimmel and Colbert and Jasmine Crockett and Chucky Schumer, they are children. They can't grasp, solutions to big problems, stopping wars and closing the border and protecting innocent people in our nation's capital. They can't do it. They can't just surrender and say, maybe this is a good idea. Maybe. And Trump's going to go to Alaska to meet Putin. And God, I hope he brings an end to that stupid war, because what will these people say? Yes. All right, we'll finish with another brilliant voice of resistance, Brandon Johnson, mayor of Chicago, which is worse than D.C. That's another thing. People say, well, you're going to do this in D.C. What about Chicago? Yeah, maybe he should consider doing it in Chicago too, because so far in Chicago, there have been 246 murders so far this year. There were 573 last year. You know what race most of the victims were? They were black. And the black mayor blames the president. The black mayor is an absolute joke. And he doesn't look in the mirror. He doesn't look at his own city, his own streets and say, man, we have a big problem. In his mind, the problem is in the White House. Listen to this fool.
I have never seen a president more off than Donald Trump. Just off the rockers. He's exacerbating the problem here. Again, like running amok around this country, shredding our Constitution. He's dangerous. We have seen this before. And inch by inch, he continues to see what he will get away with. I wish it were just a joke.
You were joking.
He's one. But it's antithetical to what we're actually working to accomplish here. This is not just about Mayor Brandon Johnson in this moment. This is about one nation that he is working overtime to divide and conquer.
God, they're not sending their best. It's hard to believe. Chicago had Lori Lightfoot as mayor and downgraded. They elected a guy who was demonstrably worse.
It's incredible that that's true.
that is the mayor of our third biggest city. They are just not electing their best in the big cities, the big blue cities. It is a shame. Maybe they'll wake up someday, but right now they are not electing their best. But, all right, that will do it for today, Wednesday, August 13th. Just getting ready for the big summit in Alaska. And God, I hope this goes well. I have my doubts, but I hope it goes well because I can't imagine what they're going to say on MSNBC and CNN if it does. But we will see. But that will do it for today. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. I'm Gerry Callahan. This is The Callahan Show, and we will do it again tomorrow.
You've called women you don't like fat pigs, dogs, slobs, and disgusting animals. Your Twitter account...
Only Rosie O'Donnell.